somebody said that talking to me, it's kind of like talking to, I mean, not the same, but talking to Henry Winkler after you've been a fan of the Fonz, because there's a bit of a disconnect. And also people are surprised that I can read. I can read. I've got a master's.
Really?
I've got a master's. That's why I went to Australia.
Hashtag masters.
Hashtag no big deal. Hashtag brainiac. Hashtag read a book, bitch.
Hey, it's Adam Sewell, and you are listening to the Stereo Dynamite podcast number 005. This episode features a rather emotional roller coaster of an interview with a good family friend, Lucy DeCoutere. Some of you may know Lucy from the hit Netflix show Trailer Park Boys, and others of you may have been made aware of Lucy in the past 6 months due to the ongoing Jian Ghomeshi scandal. Lucy was recently in Toronto staying with my wife and my son and I at our apartment in Parkdale while she was here judging a short film festival, as well as opening a fantastic photo exhibit of some, I know this sounds a little weird, but they were Instagram photos that she had taken while staying out east, and a gallery owner had blown them up and mounted them on sort of I think it was a tin backing, and they look fantastic. And so Lucy had a bit of a whirlwind weekend while she was here. And one morning, while we were sitting around waiting to go and get coffee, we just thought, what the hell, let's just do this podcast thing and we'll see what happens. And being as it is Lucy, and being the really fun person that she is, it was a great conversation, and we had a good time doing this. I have to say though, for as much fun as it was talking about, you know, being an actress in Canada and learning more about the production of the Trailer Park Boys and things, the conversation towards the end did take a bit of an emotional nosedive. And we did touch on some of the Jian Ghomeshi stuff, and Lucy opened up about a few other things that sort of go hand in hand with you know all of that. And if I sound uncomfortable talking about it, it's because it was, you know, it's difficult when you're having a conversation with your friend about these things, and then it felt even a little more difficult for me personally, realizing that I was recording this with the intent to broadcast it later on. And, you know, listening back, there are a million things that I wish I had said to Lucy while we were recording. You know, I want her to know how important she is, how important it is that the things that she's done, and you know, just how wonderful she is all around. I felt completely tongue-tied during the recording of the interview, and I'm feeling a little choked up about it right now. Now, fortunately, Lucy has one of the best senses of humor and is one of the funniest and warmest and nicest people anybody could ever hope to have as a friend. And so she made the process easier for me, I'm sure, than I made for her. I hope this all makes sense. Again, it was not an easy thing, and again, what had initially just been us killing time before we went to get coffee turned into something much, much larger than I think either of us had expected it to be. This was about a 2.5 hour conversation that I've tried to edit down as much as possible without cutting out anything that becomes relevant to the subjects that we're talking about at the time. I just didn't think anybody would want to sit through 2.5 hours of us telling a lot of inside jokes and listening to our dog run around barking. So I cut out a lot of that. And again, this was a really informal conversation. Okay, as you can tell, I'm still a little weird talking about all of this. Anyways, learning about the new season of Trailer Park Boys from Lucy was absolutely fantastic, and to have her open up the way she did again, just absolutely wonderful. And if she's listening to this, big hugs. And to the rest of you, I hope that you do enjoy the Stereo Dynamite podcast number 005 with the always wonderful Lucy DeCoutere.
Okay, what are you going to ask me? I'm so curious. All right, I'm ready. I might surprise you.
So why are you in Toronto?
I'm in Toronto for a few reasons. One reason was because the Canadian Film Festival last night just wrapped up the 2015 festival where they basically showcased the hottest, newest Canadian films that are coming from emerging filmmakers from across the country. And I was invited to be one of the jury members, so I had a chance to take a look at all these films, and in the end we had to rank a winner of a couple of different prizes, but I think in and of itself the festival was just a really great showcase for pretty good stuff. I mean, I was surprised. I really expected they were going to suck. And I was happy to see that the things that I had the lowest expectations for really, they kind of transcended that. Like short films. Have you ever seen a shitty short movie?
I've seen lots.
Lots. Right? And I saw about a dozen good ones. Every single one I was like, oh, I'm not going to get these 4 minutes back. But
I find the problem is with a lot of short films is that you've got people who've been waiting their entire lives to make a movie, and so they try to cram every great idea that they've ever had or every emotion that they're trying to express in what should be a 90-minute or 2-hour format, and they try and sell it all within 5 minutes or so, or 20 minutes, and it generally doesn't work.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And also with that, some of these people trying to express everything they've experienced in their whole lives up to now, they're 25. And so they don't necessarily understand the power of restraint and how that adds elegance to a project.
Well, I guess it's kind of the same thing that people are experiencing now with something like Netflix. Are you familiar with Netflix?
Well, it's interesting you'd ask that because I have a television series that premiered on Friday. Season 9 of the television series Trailer Park Boys.
Do tell. What?
Well, Trailer Park Boys initially was a niche piece of programming, which was born out of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, but it has since then, I'd say, caught the world on fire.
Fantastic.
You little turkey. I mean, it's so nice to talk to you because we always goof around so much, but I forget that you know everything in the world.
I do not know everything in the world.
I think you do.
Well, it's part of So you come in for the film festival, but you're also in Toronto for a gallery showing that you've got going on.
Yeah.
Which is at, what's the name of the gallery?
QSQ Quigley, which is a gallery on College Street near Ossington. And it's a case where there's a woman who... Her bread and butter is cinematography. Her name is Becky Parsons, and she shoots various projects, one of which includes the hit television series Trailer Park Boys. She's one of the key cameras.
It seems like this is a reoccurring theme in your life.
Well, it's like, it's a bad penny, And so Becky had seen some photographs that I put up on Instagram. She doesn't have Instagram, neither does she know how to use it, which I think is actually sort of adorable.
That's amazing.
And she saw some photos, and she offered me a show with not enough information. And by the time she'd seen more photographs, she was already committed, so she couldn't bail. But the photos were those which were taken over a period of the last few years. They were to punctuate an otherwise kind of bummer of a time. I mean, I was living in Fredericton, and Fredericton's great if your grandparents grew up, their family there, and you were a descendant of that and have the legacy of Fredericton behind you. But it's the kind of place that feels like, unless you're from there, you're not from there.
Sure.
And I found it was uncharacteristically difficult to foster a community there. And I was super lonely. And like, when you're 20, you can make friends because your standards are really low.
Well, your nights are a little longer.
Your nights are longer, and you're probably in school or whatever. But as a 44-year-old, I'll say woman, Meeting people with whom you have stuff in common, it's sort of tricky. And that's fine. Like, I'm able to function as a human, but everybody needs community of some kind. For some reason, that wasn't happening in Fredericton, and it's got to be my fault. I'm the common denominator. Anyway, the good thing that came from that is I took a bunch of photographs to make it seem like things were great. So even on a crappy day, I'd be like, but I took this picture of a goldfish. And so the photos, the ones that weren't really like of avocados that were cut in half with black prep. Oh my God, I cut my avocado in half. I'm sure there's a photo of avocado somewhere in my gallery.
Oh, trust me, I'm sure there's hashtag avocado.
Delicious. Hashtag what? Hashtag healthy. Hashtag clean. So anyway, so and the show was fun because I didn't have a vested interest in it, and for me the punchline was making sure that the curator liked it, making sure that the owner of the space liked it because he has to look at it until May, and then having people show up, and actually the images which I was using to network out to people brought people together from so many different worlds. At the gallery there were folks from my past, like with whom I lived in Australia, people whom I went to high school drama festivals in Dartmouth in the 80s, I guess, people who I knew from the rock scene in Halifax, people whom I had never met in person, but I had gotten to know over the last few months because I've gotten to know certain journalists because of my experience with an unemployed former CBC guy, and people whom I met through Trailer Park Boys, like John Doyle, hashtag name dropping, showed up, and I've known him for a long time because he panned Trailer Park Boys when he first saw it. He wrote in the Globe and Mail, "This is a hunk of shit. It's not funny. It's sophomoric. It's stupid." And then he was like, "Oh, actually, I take that back. It's pretty funny." And so John and I got to know each other through him becoming to understand what our point was. And he came to the show, and like, he's like a class act, and it was just lovely to have him there. Anyway,
great.
And also I got a chance to connect folks. Like, I introduced him to a woman who's a writer for the National Post, and they'd never met, but they knew each other, and it was I mean, it was great for on a couple of levels. Like, on the literal level, it was taking something that was digital and never existed. I mean, because it's all zeros and ones, baby, you know? So taking it from something that didn't exist, and it was a moment, a fleeting second where I shot the photograph, to something permanent on stainless steel, a structured thing that will last forever, which I was just taking just as whatever, and it's become something that is an object. And then, yeah, that sort of meta thing of bringing people together whom I was missing so much when I took these pictures in solitude as I rode my bike through the countryside.
Now, so you've done the film judging this weekend. We've got the gallery display happening.
Yeah.
And as you were mentioning, on Friday, the new season of Trailer Park Boys launched, but it launched this time on Netflix instead of Showtime. Is that correct?
Well, it was never on Showtime because that's an American.
Oh, not Showcase. Showcase. Sorry.
Yeah, Showcase broke up with us.
Why?
Well, after we shot.
Are you allowed to talk about this, or is this going to?
I don't see no gag on my face. So after we shot the last feature-length film, which was called Don't Legalize It, there was a change in management. At that point, Mike Clattenburg, who was the original director, editor, shooter, writer, casting, everything, Mike Clattenburg took Trailer Park Boys into life, and we shot up until like season 7, and then we took a hiatus for a while where we were like, we are never shooting again, we're done forever. And
well, I can remember talking to you about it, I guess.
Yeah. Around then.
Yeah, and you saying, well, I'm
done,
out.
All done. We're never doing it again, ever. And then, probably because there was a funding envelope which took us through the third feature, that's probably realistically what spurred the last project.
Okay.
See, the last feature-length film. There were some creative differences. There were some personality things that happen when you work with a team for 15 years, where we couldn't do it together anymore. There was I don't know exactly what happened directly, and it doesn't even matter. But there was a decision that came down where Mike Clattenburg was like, after this movie, I'm out. And the producers were out. So the three amigos, Mike Smith, John Paul Tremblay, and Rob Wells, who play the three amigos, took over the whole project. They took over all of the rights and everything. And they were like, all right, guys, enjoy. Do with this what you want to. We are out. And so that was a bit of a holy fuck, because it might have been great that they could take this and breathe new life into it, or they could suck the life out from it and make it really bad. So who knows? So season 8, they got a new executive producing team, a new sort of behind the scenes producing team to make it happen, like a new line producer, all of that stuff, with the same cast. But the writing team changed because Clattenburg was no longer involved with writing. Right. So it's like, huh. So we went into shooting season 8, and it was the first time that we were using episodic directors. Most television series have, like, the creative team and a director will come in and shoot an episode, and they'll mix it up. Like, they did that for, like, every show has that, but Trailer Park Boys had never had a guest director before. So when we went in to shoot season 8, I was very sure that it was going to be clumsy, and I was also very sure that it wasn't going to hold together, because I hate everything. Anyway, it was weird at first, and I think that it's fair to say we were all tentative, because the way the directing was happening was the three amigos were watching the scenes and then collaboratively making suggestions and edits and changes on the production day, while a director was managing the crew. That's kind of how it was going. Oh, okay. And so the actors, we weren't really getting notes because our characters are established and how we roll is established. So it was, the direction was for the team. So season 8 happened, and it was actually great, because if there had been any tension prior, it was sort of gone. The pressure had come off. Also, season 8 was a risk because we didn't have a broadcaster. Showcase didn't necessarily trust the new production team. They didn't necessarily trust the creative team, because Rob and Jape and Mike didn't have any chops, except that they were with Trailer Park Boys, but on their own, Showcase didn't buy that they were going to be able to do it. So we shot season 8, and it was fun. It was a little lumpy, but it was fun. And then we shot season 9, and we went into season 9 differently. We'd already done a season without Mike Clattenburg, and it was fine. It didn't fall apart. Right. We had some of the original folks who worked on the very earliest seasons come back when in key creative positions. So we knew season 8 we could do it. So season 9, for me, the best part was being in the shipmobile with Rob Wells, and he'd put it into reverse because it wasn't really going forward anymore. And we'd be driving, and he'd peel away and just say, sort of under his breath, so fun.
That's great.
Really great. Like, and Rob, you know, he can be quite serious, but the fact that he was just sort of like, it's fun again. And having the three guys sort of say that at different times was really nice. And
but with Mike back, it felt more like sort of an anchor in place. And
Mike had been an anchor, but sometimes an anchor can weigh things down. There were some creative differences. There were some problems. I don't know what they were. I just know there was tension. And for season 8 and 9, I wasn't on set all the time because I was commuting. I was living in New Brunswick and traveling to Truro, which is where we were shooting. So I just came in, and I could feel, without the investment of having been there for a week and being exhausted, I could just feel the energy. And there were new people around. We were again making it for nothing. Still, there's no budget. People are like wearing their own clothes, whatever. But it's cool. And it is shot differently. There are more cameras. So there are 2 now rather than 1. But our process is the same. We still stick to the scripts. There isn't a huge improvisational element to it. It just feels like there is. And when we came back to shoot the third film before we shot season 8, it was almost like a nice practice. We just slid into it. It didn't feel like time had passed. We just slid right back in, and it was easy. Despite the fact that when we started making the show, everyone was in their 30s. Now everyone's in their 40s. Most people have some kids. Most people have had probably a marriage and maybe a divorce. You know, like, we've all grown up, but people still draw cocks on any flat surface. And it's actually shocking where you can find a cock on that show. So that is still there. I haven't actually been cocked, which is surprising. But, like, yeah.
I'm not going to touch this one.
Well, that's what she said. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
But have the people from Netflix been more involved in any level at all, or are they just letting you just do it and deliver it?
Well, that's what's so interesting to me. I don't feel a presence. Like, when we were first started shooting with Showcase, we were counting the fucks per minute. Like, that was something that has been talked about a lot. Like, oh, I can't say fuck here because we said fuck there. You can only say one motherfucker. You can't say cocksucker or whatever. Like, we were counting that. I don't feel them at all. I haven't met any of the Netflix people, but that partly is because I'm not necessarily there every day. I don't feel any broadcaster presence, which is great. So, and there is one. I just don't see it. But also, so we edit ourselves. So at one point, the character of Trinity said a word that rhymes with munt, but it's got a hard C in front of it, sort of like in cucumber. So you put together cucumber and munt, and you can probably get the sort of cunty word there that she would say. And people, oh, that...
Yeah, that happened.
That's okay. So anyway, she said that, and the guys were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And Jay Baruchel was directing that episode, and he's like, I don't know, I think it was okay. But the guys were like, we can't have Trinity say that. So the guys are tracking the fucks per minute, keeping it with its appropriate tone. Like, Trailer Park Boys is outrageous, but it's not actually vulgar, sort of, which is kind of weird. But anyway,
it's one of those shows where I think you internalize the vulgarity. you need to believe that it's thoroughly more vulgar than it actually is.
Maybe. I mean, maybe that's maybe.
It's sort of the illusion of vulgarity.
Maybe that's why Trailer Park Boys kind of seems, and is, but sells this heartwarming feeling of community, because no matter what, we do actually have restraint and have an element of, I want to call it, it's elegant vulgarity.
And the relationship with the rest of the cast is all...
better. I mean, like, I feel like the guys carry this thing with them everywhere they go. We all do. But they're trailer parking all the time. And I think that something happened. I felt like there was a disconnect. And that we weren't all working towards the same end. Now that they are involved again in a more collaborative way, it feels more like we're trying to get to the same end state, and that is to make a show that works. When we're shooting, it feels to me like we're shooting for each other. Like, we've got the crew, who are the funniest people I've ever met, and like, so nice, no dicks. Like, we did that already. Like, everyone's great. Everybody works harder than they should based on the pay scale, because it's not, anyway. So everyone is doing it because they want to be there. And there is a nice warmth. And I remember we were, everyone gets so tired towards the end, and Rob and I were shooting a scene where we're sort of spooning and sleeping between takes. Not in a, but it's just really nice. And again, everyone's got kids.
Right.
And so it changes stuff, maybe. And I don't have kids, but I have a life outside from Trailer Park Boys, which is fairly complicated. And so we all sort of come together from our weird, desperate, all of those words, worlds, to come together for a couple of months to make this clusterfuck of crazy, which has its restraint and which has its boundaries and all that. And it's like, it's not summer camp, but it's like being at the cottage that you've been going to since you were a kid.
Right. No, I get that. There's the familiarity of it.
Yeah. And everyone is welcomed on set, first of all, by everyone giving them the finger and then a hug. You know?
Well, that wasn't what happened when you showed up here?
Yeah. I mean, you know.
You gave me the finger.
I may or may not have invented that.
Nice.
But it's good.
What's it like, though? Is there even a sense amongst everybody that, on set, that you are really making something that is, or let me rephrase this. Is there an awareness of the fact that when you're making the show now that, Trailer Park Boys as a brand identity, I suppose, is now, it is a part of the Canadian experience at this point. Trailer Park Boys have really, in one way or another, have sort of replaced the Bob and Doug McKenzie iconic status, if you will.
Yeah.
Is there an awareness to that when you're making the show?
I think that I can answer that on a couple of levels. Like, I'm very quick to diffuse any of that stuff, right? Because I'm not comfortable with it. So, like, I do think first and foremost, we're shooting for each other. We think it's funny or fucked. Like, I'll read the script and I'll be like, oh my God, I don't know how this is going to come off the page. And then it will. And I feel like we know what the brand is and we know where it's going for ourselves. I do feel like we still shoot it for ourselves first. And personally, I can't think outside of that because it gets a little too... I forget that people watch this. No, I don't forget. I know that people watch it because strangers talk to me a lot. But I feel like we have a responsibility now to make something that falls within the brand. Like, nobody's been killed on Trailer Park Boys, ever.
So there's more sort of a responsibility towards just the general brand of Trailer Park Boys as opposed to we're doing something Canadian.
Oh, yeah. Well, we can't make anything that's not Canadian because we are.
But
yeah.
I think there was a point where, SCTV went from, doing just this. They were doing the work that they were doing, and it was great. But then all of a sudden, around the time that the Strange Brew movie, when that came out, all of a sudden Bob and Doug became Canadian icons as opposed to just comedic icons. And things sort of changed. All of a sudden there was a sense that everything that Bob and Doug did represented Canada as opposed to represented great sketch writing for SCTV.
Right. I feel, I'm not part of the creative team in that way. I really do come in and I help them get to their end state. My character is a motivator for another character to get shit done. I think, though, I don't think that, and I may be really off my mark here, we're not necessarily thinking about things from a Canadian perspective. I think we're trying to represent every community of people. Like, everyone's got friends who are fucked up and make mistakes and follow those different sort of character sketches and character arcs. Everyone's got friends like that. And I think that's more what we're working with, something much smaller and closer. Like, I can't think of a time when we did CanCon directly. It just was there. And, we try to showcase, like, Canadian musicians and stuff, mostly because we know them. And, Helix is hilarious and Canadian. And, making fun of Gord Downey is satisfying because, well, he would probably make fun of us. He has. And I like that. I love it. And so I think that we don't necessarily think of things. I think I guess I can only speak for myself. I don't think of those things in that way. But again, when we're there and we're shooting, my motivation is the crew. I want them to have a good day and have it be fun. Like, I really keep it in the park. My relationship with the show, like, it's not the same as fans. It can't be, of course. So that's a hard question.
Do you get a sense, though, when look, you're an incredibly sociable person.
Shut up. What are you saying?
When you're out, though, there's a sense that people definitely recognize you.
Oh, yeah.
Who you are.
Yeah. They do.
Look, there's sort of the joke. Oh, you're a Canadian actor, so what restaurant do you work?
Yeah,
at?
no kidding.
Do you feel like it's gotten bigger than just being recognized as a regular actress? Is there something more to being associated with Trailer Park Boys in particular?
Yeah.
And the people that identify with you and the people that recognize you and want to talk to you about.
Yeah, because the people, and this has been from the beginning, the people who watch the show, they don't generally watch it by themselves. They usually watch it with somebody who they love, like a friend or a lover or whatever. Like somebody said that they watch it with their boyfriend and whatever. And so it's when people recognize me, I never take it personally. What I mean by that is they're recognizing me in relation to this show, which comes into their life. And I am aware of that. And I'm also very self-conscious about that. So I always flip it. And I'm like, what do you like about it? When do you watch it? What's your thing? How does it relate to you? And I always turn it back on the person so that they can tell me their experience. Because people who watch the show know more about it than I do. Know more about what's on the world, or out in the world. But yeah, like yesterday I was late running into a cafe on...
You don't say.
You can go die. It was my fault that I was late. And this guy was on his bike. Cute guy. Not just because he was on a bike, but he's cute. And he's like, oh, hey, Luce, welcome to Toronto. And I was like, thanks, bud. You know.
Uh-huh.
People... And also, because my name is the same, I can tell when people are talking to me, Lucy, or Lucy on Trailer Park Boys. There's a different tone. But yeah, like people who are fans are usually dudes, and there aren't very many passive aficionados of the show. Like they're all in.
Sure.
And they get a little crazy because but it's symbolic of something else for them. There's it's community experience. So like that's pretty nice. That's pretty cool. Like it's not it's something that seems like a community of people watch a community of people doing stuff. And to me, that's sort of beautiful, you know? It's really sweet that people watch the show and that they've stuck with it because it has had shape, like the seasons have had different shapes because of the relationships and the tensions that we've had within ourselves. And, you know, it's mostly dudes, but women will be like, my boyfriend loves this show. Me, not so much, but they do. People also expect that I'm like a raging party animal, and I'm not, like at all.
You're not?
No, I don't. You know that. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I like yoga, and so people figured out pretty quickly, and that's sort of disappointing for some people, but whatever.
I think there's kind of a nicer side to it, though, which is people get to meet you, people who might think themselves sort of above Trailer Park Boys.
What?
You know.
Yeah, I know.
and it's kind of, it's sort of that Sons of Anarchy thing.
Right.
I think when you realize that it's serious actors behind these sort of white trash icons.
Somebody said that talking to me, it's kind of like talking to, not the same, but talking to Henry Winkler after you've been a fan of the Fonz, because there's a bit of a disconnect. And also people are surprised that I can read. I've got a master's.
Really?
I've got a master's. That's why I went to Australia.
#masters.
#no big deal. #brainiac. #read a book, bitch. #no bot what. #stay in school, kids.
Word.
But, again, I literally make money off the show. Once I got a check for $9.
That's the Canadian experience.
It's the Canadian experience. So maybe if something had happened where this show made me outrageously wealthy, I wouldn't be so grounded, you know? But this show, I don't make it because of the stipend attached at all. It's sort of, after taxes, it really balances out. It's like it's kind of like nothing. I also I'm a ranking officer in the Royal Canadian Air Force. I use all of my holiday days to shoot the show. So it's kind of not, it's really not worth it in that way. The reason why I keep making it is because I can't not. And it's the community, the little park that we make within the park that is so, it's so lovely. It's this lovely world. And there's an accountability, I can't say, I guess it's to the brand, but that sounds corporate. But, you know, we're not going to stop making this until there's a reason to.
So you've talked about continuing on for another couple of seasons?
Well, we're shooting starting in a few weeks. Oh. We're shooting season 10. So, I mean, we can only take it 1 year at a time because it's freelance. You know how that shit goes. But, yeah, we're going to keep making it while people still want it. And is there a new story? Well, you know, there is only really a rumor of 7 stories in the world, and we are hitting season 10, so we probably have... But there are lots of different ways to say cocksucker, you know what I'm saying? And we seem to have found a way to do that. So we'll keep making it. And
Does the Netflix deal, though... I mean, I have no idea how Netflix would structure a deal like this, but is there a possibility that it may... If it's successful on Netflix, is there a chance that may change the financial picture for you guys and make it a bit more...
Well, I mean, the financial picture hasn't changed in 16 years. So...
I mean, I don't want to pry.
No, you're not prying. I mean, we're still making the show. It's very much Dogma 95, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're shooting...
Well, look, here's... it would be nice to see you guys get to the point where, you know, you're not living the Canadian experience based upon something that is now, especially going out through Netflix, which is now huge on a global scale.
Yeah, we're global. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know, dude. Like, I don't know how the financing works. And again, it's interesting how absent Netflix feels from this now. Like, I felt Showcase's presence a lot more because they'd show up, and maybe Netflix has. I just haven't been there on those days. But will the financing picture change? I don't know. I mean, that would be good. But everyone has another job except for the three amigos because they've got, actually they do have another job. It's SwearNet. They have this.
Sure.
So even they have another job. I feel like, you know, their cars are a little nicer than mine. Like, I have a Fiat. Somebody may or may not have a Maserati, and that's cool. But I'd love it if the crew could maybe have more toys to play with. But having said that, like, we have nice cameras. Like, it works, you know. And I really don't care about the cash. Maybe one day I will, but I don't yet.
You will.
Well, I mean, sometimes it's a bummer where I get, like, a check for, like... It was funny when we got that $9 check. Sarah and I were like, we're going to sign it and sell it on eBay for $25 and make a profit. I think one person kept it on their fridge for a while. You know, I can't even think about it because somewhere, somehow, something happened differently elsewhere. It's sort of like Gilligan's Island sometimes, you know.
Well, just...
Whatever.
Look, it's an awful thing to think that something that is... And this is not me passing judgment on Trailer Park Boys.
No.
It's me... This is, I think, with regards to a lot of things in Canadian mass media.
Yeah.
Whether it's it's part of the music industry or TV and film. But, you know, to be able to reach sort of Canadian iconic status like that and become such a part of the national identity... And then
still have to take the subway.
And then realize, you know... Well, not even taking the subway, but still have to have a day job to support, you know, propping that up.
I've never had my life paid for by that project, ever, which is sort of amazing.
That is mind-blowing.
So, that means that if that's the reality, then we're coming into it sort of for the right reasons. We're coming into it to make it. We're not coming into it because, like, we're going back to the Maldives, which I hear are beautiful. The motivation really is still very art-driven. Even though some people would not see the artistry. Is art... I mean, I come back because of and I come back for the community of it. It's beautiful. Right. And there are so many times where we're about to shoot, and I'm just looking at the crew that's around, literally the crew, like camera, the grips and all that. And I see some of my favorite people on the planet whom I met through the luxury of being cast on this project. That is great.
Oh, yeah.
Once Gord Downey from the iconic Canadian band The Tragically Hip.
I have not heard of this band.
Right. He was on set, and we were on a mezzanine overlooking the floor where the action was happening. And I said to him, "Don't watch the action. Watch the crew." And at one point, somebody dropped something and they didn't know it. And this guy came behind her, picked it up, and placed it in a place where she could find it. And he just put his hand on her back just so she knew that he was behind her. And it was just such a lovely gesture. And that to me is the money. People are taking care of each other as much as I mean, that doesn't always hold together on a set for a whole season. There are bad days, whatever. But there is it's a lovely family of people, of misfits.
Oh, that's great.
It's really lovely. And that is why I like to sometimes have people come visit, just to see what we're making in that way. Because
what ends up on screen
you never see it.
Yeah.
You don't see it. I mean, you see little hints of it. Like in Bubbles, if you press pause and look inside of Bubbles' shed, it's high comedy, ceramic kitties and all of this stuff that was sourced out of the garbage probably, or at some weird little thrift shop or whatever. And there are all of these little nuances and little jokes all over the place that people put in. They're never seen, but it's indicative of the people behind it. In the shipmobile, it is always on the clock 4:20. That's where the clock has frozen. Somebody did that. I don't know who. And I showed that to Rob, and he was like, "I've never seen this before." Like, he never noticed it before. And those little niceties,
right? No
one's going to see that. But that's sort of
the love to attention and detail that goes into it.
Yeah. It's very special. I mean,
oh, that's great.
Yeah.
How did you end up in the military, though?
Well,
why did you go to the military?
I know, it's like a next logical step. So I had always been interested in teaching because I'm crazy for children and I'm crazy for reading. So I was like, obviously, got to teach those little fuckers to read. So I actually originally I worked in documentary production for a long time. And I went to grad school at Concordia in communication studies to sort of get the philosophical motivation for building media. And I kind of got mesmerized by the TV world and how we're making a difference, and I'm doing mass education through documentary building, and that was just a hunk of shit. Like, documentary became something that I was jaded by, and that's boring. I don't want to be a jaded person. I've got other things to do with my energies. And I remembered, after I had briefly forgotten, that I wanted to teach people stuff. So I applied to a bunch of different schools, and I ended up going to school in Australia. But I'm aware that people watch Trailer Park Boys, so I figured if I focused on younger grades and put my focus on specializing in like elementary school kids, that teaching would not be impacted by Trailer Park Boys, because what kind of parent lets their child watch that shit? Like, that's even Gina Harrison, who was on Trailer Park Boys, never watched it until she was 16, because she wasn't allowed to, because that's appropriate. I mean, so I had some savings that I sunk into this. I went hugely in debt. I went to surfer's paradise. I mean, let's face it, if you're going to go to school in Australia, live on the beach. But I did this master's, and then when I came back, long story short, most people actually don't have a life that's layered and that has different avenues. Most people really don't. And so sometimes parents took issue with the fact that when their kids came home from work, or from school, they'd see me on TV on the show with all the language bleeped out.
Sure, yeah.
But anyone who was in my classroom knew I was very strict, and I actually didn't have any time for shenanigans. And I kept the classroom as tight as I could as a substitute teacher or whatever. But I could only work a few days a week because the teaching industry is very hard to break through. Plus, I would get parents calling administration commenting on me being there without them having met me. If anyone was to meet me, I mean, I'm very breezy in the way that I hang out, but if I'm with children I speak with them in a way where they're like, I'm the Pied Piper, man. Like, they're
Were
following.
you putting extra effort into being a little more, say, conservative or strict in order to sort of combat people's perceptions of you from the show?
No, I was in a professional environment where children require a certain kind of structure in order for their day to be cool. You know? When you walk into an elementary school and you're the substitute teacher, they're like, sweet, free pass. And I'd be like, no, it's not a free pass. Your day right now is good. You have the choice to keep it awesome. So for the little children, like the 5-year-olds and whatever, I kept it like I spoke in a quiet voice so that they had to listen to me, and I kind of used like Jedi fucking ninja tricks to keep those little hustlers engaged. And when I was teaching high school, I was like, okay, guys, I'm not a police officer. If I wanted to be a cop, I would have gone to police academy. Put your phones away. If I see them, I'll take them. I'll kick you out. I don't care what happens. But I think we can have a good hour together. And they were like, okay, great. Usually it was fine. And if I had a problem with a person, that's because they were a person who had problems with all of their teachers.
Sure.
So schools who had me would have me back. But I wasn't making any money. Like, I was in debt. I was like struggling. My hair was falling out because I was stressed. I was trading cooking lessons at night with people for meals. I was teaching all the time. I was tutoring. I was doing all this stuff, and it was not manageable. And when I finished, I was at that point, I was like 38, and I was like, this isn't going to get better quickly. And I borrowed a bunch of money from a friend with an agreement to pay her back, and got myself out of trouble. And I was like, this is not working. I thought maybe it could, but it's not. So I have to do something else. I applied for every job in the world. Restaurant. I didn't want to work in film. I couldn't do it. And Trailer Park Boys wasn't happening anyway. I couldn't do it. I had to do something else, something drastic. And if I couldn't live the dream, and it was my dream to be a teacher and to live in Halifax and have a dog and do all of that, if I couldn't do it, I had to really unplug and do something else. And I ended up joining the Air Force. I applied on a whim. And I was very candid in my interviews. I didn't pretend to be anything I'm not, and they still hired me. And I'm like, okay, crazy people. And I gave my dog a new home, which was awful. She is the sweetest little friend, and I gave her away, and I sort of packed up all my shit, and I went to basic training when I was 39. And when I came back from basic training, people were like, so what was that? Was that research for a project? And I was and these were people whom I didn't know.
Right.
They knew me, sort of, and I was so put out by that. And I'm like, because they don't understand the sacrifice that involved, and they don't know how hard it was, and they don't know. I take my role in the Air Force very seriously. I do not ever have the two collide. I will not be photographed in uniform unless it's a work-oriented thing. I don't think it's funny. I can't afford to. I can't. And I'm not fully comfortable in the role. Maybe that's why. I've got my suitcase over there, and it's been open, and you've seen my uniform. That makes me uncomfortable because I really do. For some reason, my work there is very private. Maybe because my other job is so public.
No, I can understand that.
Yeah.
I can completely understand that.
It's a thing. It's whatever. It's interesting. And when people are like, it's hilarious that you're in the military, I'm like, I'm a fucking drop you with that shit. Or people are like, oh, it's like Private Benjamin. No. Here's the difference. That was a fucking movie. And this was not, I took I fucked up in basic training because I lose little things all the time. I'm a bit of a space case in certain ways. But the thing is about basic training, it made me, I came out of it a more relaxed person, believe it or not. I actually am punctual, you little piece of shit. And, unless there's stuff outside of my control, but now I'm punctual. And I understand the importance of formality, definitely in that role. But I guess my reaction to that is when I'm not in uniform, I'm pretty loose. But it's an interesting job to have. I've already had all of my dreams come true. So being in the military as a 9th career or whatever, my tack is different.
Well, let me ask, why would you have chosen, because we had talked about this a couple of years ago, and you said something to me that I thought was a little unique even for you. Because I had asked you, I said, well, okay, so if you're not shooting Trailer Park Boys now, why don't you go off and find another role or find some other things? And you said, oh, I don't want to audition.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to bother doing anything else.
Yeah.
And you were sort of hell back. I'm gonna go fly helicopters or something. And I thought, well, okay.
Yeah.
But why is it though that you haven't gone on to, or I don't know, maybe you have been. Have you been auditioning for other things?
No.
Or?
I do other stuff. Tom Fitzgerald always mercy casts me in projects.
I keep waiting to see you as a corpse on Motive, and it never happens.
No, I haven't done that. I haven't auditioned for that because I'm not a dead lay.
Oh. Really?
I mean, what am I going to do? You've laid it out there. Okay, so the audition process is horrific. In order to, I didn't audition for Trailer Park Boys. I do stuff if people invite me to. Like, I do voiceovers for video games because I've been told I have a face for video games. I'm at that magic age where women don't ever get film work anymore. You're either hot or you're a nana. So there's that. But also, I don't have a lot of confidence when it comes to acting in that way. I did do some work with Tom on his new show, which is called Sex and Violence, which it's about sex and violence. And in it, I play a sort of disengaged therapist, where I'm like, yes, and how do you feel like that about that? But really, my motivation is like, I have a yoga class in 20 minutes, and this session's over in 10. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, and I was working with people who are method or very engaged, and their method was so different, and I just felt very aware of the fact that I'm not trained in that way. I've never... Everyone, I guess, has their sort of self-deprecating stuff. I know how good-looking I am, and I know how talented I am. I'm aware of my boundaries there, and I just don't buy the hype that you need to be selling in order to get through that process. I don't think I can sell it. So rather than like running for this dream that, you know, if you get a series, that's fine. You don't need to do more. Also, I did encounter I did come to Toronto to be, quotes, a famous actor for a couple of times. And Trailer Park Boys has made me niche enough that I'm recognized in that. Plus, when it comes to shooting other series, every series shoots in the summer. And so,
sure,
you know, so there are a number of factors at play. So A, my own lack of confidence, my own physical limitations, because this face, you know, it'll only take you so far. And the trends in the market. Women, I mean, now it's changing a little bit. Like Claire Danes is at that magic age where she's sort of too old to be hot, but too young to be a nana, at the ripe age of like her late 30s. There is a change happening. I think that, I mean, just
because honestly, I can't understand how I'm not seeing you in tons of other things, and how you're not able to have
my busting career.
Well, look, I mean, just to be able to spend time with you, and to have such a larger than life personality, how anybody isn't harnessing that and turning that into, you know, something that's beyond just a supporting role on Trailer Park Boys is beyond me.
I don't know. I mean, it has to do. Maybe it boils down to just not being special enough. You know what I mean?
Trust me, you're special.
Oh, baby. But there's a specialness that has to come through, and I'm not a creative person. I can't make something of my own. I have to work with someone who's made something. I've never been an idea generator, ever. That's never been my forte. Like when I was going to grad school, I would work with people on projects and we'd make fun stuff, and if someone has an idea, I can certainly help them to augment it and make it more bizarre or more whatever they want. But I'm not an idea generator. So if I wanted to get famous, I would have to become Sarah Silverman. Because she's got this brain, she's got this quirky, you know what I mean? Like somebody like that. I don't have that.
Yeah, but there's a team around Sarah Silverman. There's always been a team around her.
There's a team. And so I guess, like, if I was to do this all again and start this all again, I would have, earlier in the days, maybe, knowing what I know now, found a team. Found someone who could hook me up. I mean, you need a team.
In the same way that Sarah Silverman needed people like Dan Harmon.
Yeah.
I would love to see you.
Let's do it. You know, but I've got my own, like, you know, issues of confidence, which.
If you could only see the look I'm giving her right now.
It's all eyebrows and squinting. But I've got those and, you know, critical voices that sound vaguely maternal, you know, that I would need a team to do that. And so that's what it boils down to. And so if I had done it that way, maybe, you know, whatever. But again, I'm not a creative person. I don't believe that I've got the secret specialness that you need. And I've got my own physical limitations, and I'm not going to get plastic surgery, you know what I'm saying? So these are all things that
I don't buy the physical limitation. I don't.
Is that because you're in love with me?
Yeah.
I know. You're not the first. And so whatever, like, that's sort of where that is. And, you know, people, like, I've had a jillion people be like, I'm going to write something for you. And I'm like, do it. And actually, Tom Fitzgerald told me that he did write something for me. But I joined the Air Force, and he didn't know I could shoot it. And so it was cast to someone else who is killing it. So that's great. So, you know, whatever. Like, it's just, so I have the luxury of having something that's really grounding and keeps me on an even keel, defending a nation.
Defending a nation.
It's got me enough freedom to shoot projects and entertain a nation. And when I need a little bit more of a creative element, I can take photographs and capture a nation.
Are you feeling, I mean, you're doing all these things which, in a sense, cover all these bases. Mm-hmm. But is it at a level that you want it to be at this point?
I don't know. I mean, it would be great. I mean, if I could just...
If I'm being a dick...
No, you're not being a dick. I mean, like, for example, this weekend to me has been perfect because I had a chance to do, like, my civic duty, because I'm doing, you know, stuff that involves the law right now. So I can do that, and then I got to go feed the community by volunteering to do this film festival thing, and then I got to sort of feed my own bucket of seeing friends at this photographic exhibition, and then being in Toronto and getting my big city fix, and then having the luxury of talking with you about this stuff. So that sort of, like, if that could be my life all the time, that would be golden. None of this shit pays. So if there's a way that I could make it pay, that would be great. But that's not what's happening. So I'm doing my best to have a full life that's got lots of different facets, and that's how it's currently designed, accidentally. But, you know, I joined the Air Force because it makes sense. It offers a kinetic lifestyle where you do move every so often. It allows me to use my brain, all of it, and constantly be in a situation where I'm learning, and my job is to design environments where people can share information, and that's my cup of tea. I love it. There's this thing, do what you love. Oh, do what you love, and the money will follow. That is a crock of shit. And so, I was recently, it was either on the radio or on an article that I read where people are like, you don't have to do what you love. You can have a job that allows you to do what you love. So, you know, I've probably made missteps along the way. Maybe I could have turned this into something else, but I didn't know how to do it. No one around me seemed to care in that way. So, since I have had to design it myself, this is the best I could come up with. So my next step for that is to continue. I still am trying to grow stuff. I'm going to be doing more stuff with photographic whatever, and I'll still like campaign Tom Fitzgerald to cast me in his shows that are so cool, and you know, he's so great. He's really good. Once I was doing the scene with him where I just couldn't get the language right. I was sort of delivering my sentences sort of in a staccato, punctuated bullet hole kind of way, and he said, "That's great. I'm thinking next time a little less Bill Shatner." Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald, for your delicate directorial style. So, if I can do stuff with friends like that, luckily I've got friends who, and if people will put me in stuff every once in a while, great. That allows that thing. Mm-hmm. And Trailer Park Boys, you know, allows me to understand the television industry from a recognizability perspective. Being recognized isn't what you think, as you know. Like it's actually very uncomfortable because people are talking to what they think is me, and so I have to sort of diffuse that and stuff. It's really been good to experience that. And my recognizability over the last 6 months has been through the roof. People know me everywhere I go. And again, because of my affiliation with Jian Ghomeshi, I've just become a known person. And that's a very small part of my life, but that's become elevated. And so now I can deal with them and how people are reacting to me, which is extremely kindly and very compassionately. But it's not me that they're reacting to. They're reacting to the conversation that has come from a 20-minute long chat that I had with a journalist. And I'm aware of that, and so I can take that and turn that into a really cool, community-oriented way of helping people get out of trouble. Maybe. So if Trailer Park Boys has led to that, and so I don't have a huge, amazing career and like a Maserati...
The Maserati.
It's so a little part of my life. But that's interesting, and so that's what I'm working with. That's all I got. And that's fun. And thank God I don't have kids, dude. Because I wouldn't have the real estate to deal with all of these different things. I would be happy to be focusing on my kid probably, but...
You know what's interesting, though, is you definitely seem to be in a much different place than you were when we spoke a couple of years ago.
Yeah, because I got smashed to pieces. You know, maybe.
Well, I was going to say you definitely seem more driven and sort of happy about, you know, working and...
I'm more driven because, if I can be really candid, being in the Air Force means that I've got a paycheck. That's happening. I go to work, and that's happening. I don't have to worry about whether or not I can cover costs, because I can.
Right.
And it's not like way covering costs, but costs are covered. And also...
So it's a breath of fresh air and allows you some freedom.
First time in my life, I'm like old and stuff. And now I can pay rent or mortgage or whatever. So that offers some freedom. And I've had a rough go in over the last few years. And so coming out from that with this new... People are listening to me in a different way.
Yeah.
So I can use that for good. And stuff.
Do you mind if I ask you just... how are you holding up?
Yeah.
Are you...
It's been interesting. Because when I first...
And look, if you
no,
want
it's
to
fine.
just
So
skip...
fine. No, it's good. When I first... Like, this whole thing with Ghomeshi... He's not part of my life. I sort of don't care. because it was such a long time ago, whatever. When I knew him, he's not part of my everyday. I don't like, draw hearts over the eye or whatever. But it has forced me to do a few things. It's forced me to address some deficiencies I've had in my life. After I dated him, years later, I was in an emotionally abusive relationship with a guy. And when it ended and I realized what I had been in the middle of, which was a web of very complicated brain fuckery, candidly, when I came out of it, I was like, I'm going to deal with this by riding my bike 1,000 kilometers and I will be fine. I wasn't. And then I rode another 1,000 and I wasn't. So then the stuff with Ghomeshi came and I got mowed over. But I was mowed over by the compassion and warmth of strangers, 90% of whom had had something really bad happen to them, where they were raped or something. They didn't necessarily have to elaborate. I could fill in the gaps. So I had to become really honest with myself about what had happened with this guy, not Ghomeshi, the other one. I had to go to therapy because I was so anxious that I couldn't climb a flight of stairs without feeling like I was slipping into an anxiety attack because my pulse was rising. I had to change the way I talk to people. I've become way more candid when it comes to negative stuff. And so many people, like now, if I get interviewed by somebody, there's a chance it'll end up in Maclean's, which is fine. That's great. Great. Because I luckily don't lie. So it's been sort of relaxing. Nobody's ever going to fuck with me again. They can't because I have to tell someone. Oh, what a bummer. And also, I can't put up with it. And I have an enabling personality where I will I'll do a lot. I'll do so much. And I can't do that anymore, which is my default, but it's kind of relaxing. So the toll was I was like, I'm doing awesome. And then I was flat. I spent the winter, some people, when they do something self-destructive, they'll blow all their money on hookers and blow. I was literally still, which has very negative physical implications. My knee's kind of fucked up now and I'm not in the greatest shape, and I have a triathlon coming up. It's going to be disgusting. I'm going to be the last one. I've got work to do. I've just been not taking care of myself. And I don't know why it's manifested that way, but whatever. So, but at work, nobody knew I was upset. Not really. They said that my tongue got a little sharper. But I work with dudes who could do with some correction sometimes. And, I encourage people to use the correct language when it comes to talking to us. Somebody wasn't nice to somebody. Oh, he raped her? Well, no, that's what it was. So it's had that. It's been an expensive time. I don't regret talking about it because it seems to have fostered an environment where people who are really in trouble can talk about what's happened. I know, based on what folks have told me, that people have gotten the chutzpah up to leave bad situations. A few people directly. So maybe there are a dozen who I don't know about. There are also women who have told me that based on conversations that I've had in the media, they have dealt with their own bad situations very directly, trying to action things that would help other women come forward. That's a big deal. And if that's the case, that's great. But again, people I was put in Maclean's magazine as a newsmaker of the year, and that is not accurate. What is accurate is the conversation. For whatever reason, me blabbing about what happened, people flipped a switch and started believing stories that they weren't before. I don't know why now. I think that the climate was right. It's got nothing to do with me. It's got to do with thing that I'm trying to make a balanced image that's not very radio friendly. You know what I mean? So I'm and it's sort of like Trailer Park Boys. People go, oh, I love you. You don't. It's Trailer Park Boys. And with this whole thing with oh, you're the voice of women. You're an icon. I am an icon. However, it's not it's not me. People are celebrating the public's recognition that maybe if somebody says some guy raped them and they're not getting any money out of it and they seem really upset and jumpy, maybe they got raped. You know?
Yeah.
Who fucking would make that up? I mean, a crazy person. 4 in 100. That's the statistic. 4 people out of 100 people who say something bad happened, 4 lied. Okay. So that means 96 of the guys were dicks. What? Right. Who does that?
Are you okay, sort of comfortable with where things are at right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning about the legal process, which is, I don't care that it's slow. They're very cautious, and they're very formal, and that's fine, and that's interesting. To me, I'm not invested in outcomes for this thing. I don't know where it's going to go. It's really like after I got out of this relationship with this guy who was emotionally destructive, I really was hoping that I would, after I had my own recovery, work in an environment where I could help other women transcend bad relationships. So this has sort of allowed that to happen on a bigger scale than I expected, maybe. You know, I didn't expect I'd get a hashtag, but hashtag no big deal. But like, that's great. That's great, because I was so, this guy took my voice away, and he made me feel less in a way that was so surgical. And that is happening to people everywhere all the time. And I didn't even know that's something that existed. And if that was my experience, and now I've talked to so many other people directly who've had that, it's just like, it's an interesting, it's the saddest thing, right? So I'm comfortable with what's happening with, I think you're asking from a legal perspective how that shit's going.
Well, just, no, I mean, to be honest with you, just asking the real Lucy,
yeah.
not the Lucy who's the figurehead of
a movement?
Of a movement. Or Lucy from Trailer Park Boys, but
yeah.
just asking you, just,
I mean,
it's if you're holding up okay.
It's okay. Like, being in Parkdale's tricky for me because the guy lives right there. He lives close by. And every time I leave the house, there's a risk that I'm going to see him. And the last time he talked to me, he said he was going to destroy me if I ever mentioned that he was abusive. And he said that he was going to take advantage of the fact that I'm a known person and use that as a way to ruin me. I don't know really how he would do that exactly, but, you know, he believed that that was going to happen. And, but in the end, he's not a powerful person. And the fact that he had to make a threat to someone is sort of an indication of all that stuff. And I understand that intellectually. But, oh yeah, okay, did I finish answering your question? It's pretty candid. Anyway, oh, the best thing, though, about knowing this guy who I got so deeply into and who was so, like,
awful?
He was pretty bad. I mean, and to be fair, when he was good, he was great. Is that now I can understand in a way that I couldn't before. If someone is in an abusive relationship that they can't get out from, where it's like, he broke my back because I accidentally made something the wrong thing, but I love him. And I'm like, I get it. It's totally fucked, but I now understand it. And you can't unless you've lived it. So when I have these people writing to me, and that's slowed down, but in October and November, I got thousands of pieces of correspondence. And I could respond compassionately and legitimately, which is a bummer, but it was...
I can't even imagine. I can't wrap my head around it. I mean, honestly.
Which part?
Understanding being in that situation.
Of course you can. Because nobody would treat someone like that unless they were, I guess the term is, fucked in the head. And I've got an enabling personality. My mother, bless, left her parents when she was 5. Something, Hitler. So, you know, maybe not, you know, stuff. There are things that it's complicated. Like, I have an enabling personality where I will bend quite a bit, more than people would expect. And I'm a classic kind of clinger in that way. Like, if I can make something work, if it's not working, I will bend. But now I can't anymore. Like, I have to change that, because if I don't, and then I just feel an accountability to folks who have been offering really inaccurate descriptions of my personality, because I feel like, maybe more so than with Trailer Park Boys, I do have an accountability to folks who are watching this whole thing.
I feel completely tongue-tied for words.
What?
Well, I can't imagine being in your position. I mean, it's definitely nothing I'm envious of, and I having this discussion with you and recording it like this. This is the moment when I am very aware of the fact that I am not a professional journalist. And so choosing words carefully or carrying the conversation in a professional way is something that's completely foreign to me.
Right.
But knowing you and you being a family friend and all, I mean, all like...
a family friend? Personal friend?
Personal friend.
Okay.
I want you to know how amazing... we all feel that you are, and how strong you must be for doing this.
Except that I've been freebasing popcorn. It's fucking weird. I was never an emotional eater before, and I'm like, I'm gonna pour some extra virgin olive oil all over your shit, man. It's crazy. That's my fucking binge drinking. And also, this whole thing has played out in the public sphere, but I have been living alone in Fredericton with no community. So, in a way, I've been protected from a lot of the rumblings, except that strangers will do things like give me presents. When I'm walking down the street, people will be nicer to me, or they'll give me deals in a weird way. People are giving me breaks in ways that are shocking, because they know me, and they shouldn't. Or walking down the street, like sometimes people just look at me and nod, but not in a Trailer Park Boys way. It's a different one.
Right.
So, it's interesting. And what's interesting is all of the men that I know have been really enveloping. They've scooped me up, and they've been really trying to wrap their heads around it, because I feel like I have to therapize them through it. Except for my old boyfriend, the Parktail guy, who was just like, oh, you just love it. All these people all over the world just kissing your ass. That's his reaction, because he's terrified that I'm going to say that he was also abusive. But not just to me, to any woman that he has dated. It has become apparent that that is his MO, because he's a broken person. I don't fault him for that, because I'm fucked in the head. And I've got a lot of compassion for him because of that. And I do have compassion for the unemployed guy, because he's living with his mom, and his, it's a tough situation he's in. Both of them, whatever.
Let me just say, I think it's really amazing of you to be strong enough to go through this. I can't imagine what it would be like, but I can tell you, just from conversations I've had with people, and people who have no idea that I even know you at all.
You don't have a T-shirt that's like FOL, Friend of Lucy?
Well, there's just the banner on my Facebook page.
I saw that. That was really nice. Yeah.
It was a good angle of
nice
you.
Collage.
But people, again, who have no clue that know you at all, the things that are being said is really just comes down to, it was amazing that somebody had finally gone on record and started this.
Yeah, but I went on record because Nobu Edelman asked me if that was something I was cool with doing. So I have to credit him, actually, because I didn't think that... I mean, maybe I would have approached these guys, but Nobu's really smart, and he recommended that maybe I would have something to say that Jesse would be interested in, because I didn't think I did. And I spoke with Jesse Brown recently, and we both had the same conversation. But whilst I was talking to him, I was like, I don't think he's even paying attention. I thought he was maybe like making a sandwich or something. Meanwhile, he was typing every word, and he was like, fuck, my career's not over. Because he was getting so much hate correspondence. Yeah. And one thing that he said to me that did impress me, apart from his amazing pool abilities. No, I don't even know if he plays pool. But what did impress me is, he's like, just imagine what it was like for those first women who came forward, who remain anonymous, and as they watched 100,000 people say they were liars.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, that had to be a real buzzkill for them. And how people were so, friends of mine who are normal were like, seems fucked up. And I tried to warn people that I was going to come forward. Not warn them like in any other way than to soften the surprise. And, again, for whatever reason, maybe because I'm just known enough and my story was just bad enough that it was believable. It's not like Christy Brinkley was like, oh, I got dragged around by my ear or something. Like, that's ridiculous. But me with my situation, that's not that crazy. So that could be, yeah, okay. Then that jump makes sense. But it's like, it's just, the whole thing has been fucking interesting to watch. And I can be abstracted from it, maybe because I'm dealing with this much more personally devastating stuff with this other thing.
Sure. And
I have the real estate to do it. And I knew that right away, that I could talk about it, and it wasn't like, I relived it, and there was one guy who was interviewing me, and he's like, could you put your hands in the position? And as I'm talking to you, I'm like feeling it. I'm feeling my neck in a way I don't like. And I did buy like this big sweater with a huge neck that's like you can hide under right around that time. It's no coincidence. So I do have a visceral reaction when I think about explaining stuff that allegedly did or did not happen. But if I heard parts of my body literally being broken and had to retell that story, it just wouldn't happen.
Sure.
And that's why my story was tellable, because I could carry that and deal with the media stuff, so that when folks who had a really serious story, maybe would give them the real estate to come through. And in some cases it has. So.
Well, look, I don't want to press this any further.
You can press whatever you want. Well, like, that's the thing too. This is out there. Like, this isn't even personal anymore. Partly because it's therapeutic, realistically, but also I've put it out there. Like, it's open. I'll tell anybody whatever, because it's not not mine anymore. I gave it away in a good way. I'll give it away to you, Adam, but now we're talking about something that's like a mommy daddy, like Saturday night thing. You know what, though? This whole thing has changed my sense of humor, especially at work. If anyone says anything that's misogynistic, I shut that shit down in a way that is appropriate. I work with a lot of dudes.
Are they more likely now to walk on eggshells a bit?
No, but they'll listen to me. When I'm like, what you just said? Best choice? Gentlemen, you can probably find a different way to express your frustration with the situation rather than bringing in female sex workers. I'm just offering that up as an option for you. And with my father, he said, well, apparently somebody wasn't very nice to your cousin because he raped her. My cousin wasn't raped. I'm just using that as an example, or whatever. I'm like, so why don't we use appropriate language, Dad? Why don't we use the word raped? That's a good one. It's direct. Being inappropriate means like you gave someone bad change. Or a bad hand job. That's inappropriate. Like, you gotta always,
that was completely inappropriate.
You gotta. So, and there's a woman named Catherine Burrell who, she's also got a raucous sense of humor. And it's been curtailed by this. Oh, how frustrating. Whatever. It's fine. There are other ways to express yourself using big girl words. Like manifesto or cilantro.
Cilantro's good.
That shit's tight.
I'm down with cilantro.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck is wrong with people. People have this real hatred for cilantro.
They're pussies. No offense to all the felines.
No offense to all the pussies who don't like fucking cilantro.
That shit and some pho? Tight.
Well, look, I feel completely drained.
Sexual? No, sorry. See, that's my default defense mechanism shit, right? Sexually.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Well, you're pretty quick with the...
Innuendo?
double and triple
I like the triple.
entendres.
Yeah, sure. How'd this go for you?
You know, well, look, here's the thing. I am by no means any type of professional broadcaster or journalist. And
You mentioned that before.
you know, I think I'll probably mention it another 5 times
Yeah,
before
you're not
we're
a
done.
professional journalist. It's interesting. What were you going to say about not being a journalist?
Well, look, I'm sure there's a way that George Stroumboulopoulos would wrap this up in a way that...
You talk about being my boyfriend. Look at your adorable face as you struggle. You know what? This whole thing, I can wrap this up for you this way, because it's always nice to end on a positive note.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who's a Crown attorney, and I was having a bad day. I think I spent 5 hours talking about fucking something awful, and I always will have 4 conversations going at the same time about fucking assault or whatever, and an article I'm reading about reporting or whatever. And anyway, I was talking to this woman, and I said, this whole thing is so sad. And she's like, are you kidding me? This is fantastic. This conversation is open. So that's good.
That's a great thing.
And so it's expensive for me and other folks who are in the middle of navigating a complicated, convoluted legal system that still hasn't quite figured out how to deal with this. But if the conversation's open and people are reporting to whomever, it doesn't have to be the press, it doesn't have to be the police, and if men are starting to look at their friends who they know are known for being bad guys, and if people are sharing stories about warning people off, I dated that guy, he was bad news, and understanding that doesn't come from a jilted lover perspective, but that might come from something else, to start to read between the lines, if there are any lines to be between, and people can start maybe getting rid of that negative stuff, and maybe in 10 years it's a little less grody, but it's
That's an incredibly important takeaway. Incredibly important.
Maybe that's what it is, right? Do you want to go get some pho and put some cilantro on it?
Yes.
Can we take your girlfriend?
Well, yes. Lucy, thank you for
juggling words here.
Cilantro and then burritos.
You're lovely, and the more I get to know you, you're not that bad. You're really such a smiley guy. The thing that for me, when I got to know you more, that I knew that you weren't actually just a guy who wears black t-shirts and has an inappropriate number of tattoos, but you showed me this video of a cat drinking water. And you're like, I can't get enough of this shit. And I was like, oh, you're that guy. And it's adorable.
Lucy, say goodbye.
Bye. You're lovely.
Thank you
for doing
fun.
This.
Thank you for doing this.
You're smart.
I'm not smart.
He's smart. He's really smart. He pretends he's not, but he's really smart.
I'm smart enough to keep my mouth shut while smart people are talking.
He didn't stop talking for the last fucking hour.